me introduce Ayush, a few lines about Ayush, and then he can probably introduce himself as well. So Ayush, he's the CEO of FamPay. He is an IIT and he graduated about a year ago, and that's when he started off FamPay, and it's been an incredible journey for him. I'll let him introduce himself right now. So Ayush, the stage is yours. You can probably introduce yourself, and then we can dive right into questions. Yeah.
Thanks, Harish. Thanks, Gautam, for having me here. Hi, guys. I'm Ayush. I am a 2019 graduate from IIT Roorkee, and I'm founding team member at FamPay. So, I'll just quickly give you a brief introduction about FamPay. So, FamPay is a digital payments app for teenagers in India. So, when I say teenagers, I primarily mean specifically people under the age of 18, so who are minors in India, basically. So, like if you look at the whole thing, there's Paytm, there's Google Pay, there's Phone Pay, and there are a lot of payments happen in the industry. We're targeting 18 and above as the primary audience, and because of a lot of regulatory issues and a lot of legal compliances, these people are not able to give out a digital payment solution for teenagers. When given that, so we started working on FamPay when we were in college. We were in the last semester, and we realized that like there were series of realizations, but the basic one was that a lot of our friends are not managing money like the way they should. They don't understand how finance works, how money works at a very basic level. And we just realized, okay, this is not a problem with adults. This starts when we are in school, because when we are in school, no one actually teaches us about finance. Not our parents, because they don't think it's something that children should know about. And there's no subject in the school as well where, I mean, like, teachers tell you about how to manage your money, right? So eventually, what happens is when you go to college, and then like you have certain responsibilities of also like managing your own money, your own pocket money. You're not very dependable on your parents, and then as soon as you graduate, then that level of dependency even increases. So you don't get a transition time, you don't get a specific flow of how do you learn about these things. And then everyone has their own hypothesis of how they do it, and eventually end up not being uh, right. I mean, people do a lot of mistakes. So that is how it started. Me and the other founding team members, we have seen our friends, personally us also, doing some mistakes in terms of managing our money, and realize that this is something which we definitely need to work on. I mean, combined with the fact that every household in India has young CTO these days. Even you're 14 years old, you're basically the person who drives all the technology adoption. So that is why we came up with the idea of how do we integrate the whole technology plus personal finance for kids space. And that is how we came up with FamPay as a concept, where parents are a part of the ecosystem, the children are a part of the ecosystem, and I mean, they can do all sorts of payments on FamPay. You can do you get a debit card from FamPay. You can do UPI payments on FamPay, and then you can also send money to your friends or any other person on FamPay. It's very convenient. So that is very brief about FamPay and me. I mean, like, do I also talk about other things about myself, or it's just FamPay which you want to talk about?
You can talk about yourself. I mean, you can let us know what your background is and how is it that went about building expertise in this space, right? Given that you're primarily an engineer,
Yeah.
but you still went about learning things which are slightly tangential from what you did back in university.
Yep. So, I mean, like, as a regular kid who was studying for IIT JEE, I also started preparing for that. And honestly, I was never interested in engineering at all. My parents were like, if you don't want to do engineering, just come to family business. But I was not. I thought, okay, they basically mean I should do engineering. So I joined non-medical. It went well. Overall, in the 4 years, I was always interested in entrepreneurship. I started a small gig in my first year itself. I started selling t-shirts to people. Okay, that is, I think, the standard way people start up a company in the college. So t-shirts, customized posters and stuff like that. And since then I've been very interested in the whole industry. I've been interning with a lot of startups, working with startups inside the college. There's this entrepreneurship cell which every IIT has and almost all the colleges right now have. So I was the secretary for the call. I mean, for the entrepreneurship cell. So overall, I think the experience of like hosting events, meeting new people, and also interning at these organizations whenever I got a chance. Uh, Basically motivated me a lot and gave me a clarity that okay, this as a person, I really don't think I should be doing a job. And I mean, I think my hypothesis was that what is the worst it could happen if I start up, and I was able to make peace with the worst case scenarios. I just basically started up in the college itself.
Well, that's actually a great story. And if you look at entrepreneurs who start young, a lot of them usually have the problem of taking that risk, taking that jump, and trying to see what they can do with the uncertainty. And it's great how you tackle that. Can you also give us a bit on help us understand how you put that team together, you and your
Yes.
co-founder, how is it that you started working on that, right? And I think that would give us a view on how is it that both of you, figured out that you guys had the same idea or a similar idea, and how you started wanting to work on it together.
Interesting. I think this is definitely a very interesting story. So the founding team members, I mean, since we all are from IIT Roorkee, we knew each other from the first year of college, and it was like in the final year. Eventually, we were thinking like, okay, we don't want to go for placements now. We actually have to do something, and this happened in Bangalore, that at one of the events for that matter, where we heard there was a conference happening, and we heard a lot of people talking about gaming as a industry, online gaming. And then there was this person who stood up asking panelists a question. Okay, I'm a game developer, and most of my audience is under the age of 18, and I don't know how to earn money apart from advertisements and stuff, because most of my audience is just using cash in India. So that was like the first point which struck us, and then a series of realizations when we also like talked to parents, understood how the pocket money concept works, because eventually in India people don't get regular pocket monies. It's like money on demand. If you want to get something, they'll give you money, or they'll get that thing for you. So we went to malls. We like understood how parents are responding to the whole concept. Took us 3 months to talk to a lot of people, because also we didn't have any experience in the fintech industry at all.
Mhm.
So it took us some time to understand what exactly UPI is, how a debit card works. I mean, we personally were using all of these services, but never get got into the technicalities of how it works at the back end. So we took
Right.
some time and understood how it works, and that was the time we realized, okay, it's not that easy for us to get into the payment space for teenagers, because uh, at the end of the day, there are not a lot of rules and regulations and terms which govern them, and there's a gray area that there's no rule against it, but there's no rule which says you can do it. So eventually, you need to. It was like very confusing for us to talk to so many people and understand how it works, but eventually. I mean, now it's now after like 6, 7, or 8 months of active execution. Now we know that how like under 18 kids and rules and regulations and terms and privacy policies all work, especially in fintech, because it's also money.
Right. So can you tell us a bit about the solution? How is it that it works, and what is it that FamPay offers to students specifically?
Sure. So how it works is that just like you have most of us have WhatsApp groups with our family members, right? So what happens at FamPay is you come to FamPay, you can create a family group that is called a fam pool. So basically, as a family, you pool in money. The
Mhm.
only part is that if you're a minor, that is, if you're under 18, you cannot add money to the pool. You can just spend that money from the pool. So let's say if you have a elder sibling who's an adult, and let's say your dad or your mom, they're a part of the group of the pool, and they add money to the pool through, I mean, their bank account, net banking, debit card, anything. And then that this pool is something which they can also use to spend money from. You can also use to spend money from. And in terms of spending money, there are three ways, as I mentioned. One is we issue a debit card, which is a virtual card in the app, which is like all the numbers, 16-digit number, the expiry date, the CVV, everything will be there in the app. So you can just copy the details from there and paste anywhere online. There's a physical card, and there's a UPI service. So in the UPI service, basically, you can scan and pay to any UPI merchant in India. So I'm not sure if everyone knows about UPI, but it's a unified payment interface which was launched by NPCI, which is a government body, National Payments Corporation of India. So we basically have that service available in the system. It enables us to do like not put in QR codes of FAMPay at all the places, but build an ecosystem on the top of what PhonePe or Bharat Pay or any other UPI based company has done to the ecosystem when it comes to digital payments from UPI. And the third is sending money to anyone who is a FAMPay user. Just like if anyone has used Paytm, so in Paytm you can send money to your friends just by putting in phone number. It's something similar that you can send money to your friends or anyone who's a FAMPay user through their phone numbers. So that is how it works at an Uber level. Of course, there are a lot of other features, a lot of things for specifically minors to engage inside the app, which are not specific to payments as well. So I mean, if we talk about the payments, yeah, that is how it works.
Okay, okay. What are the other things that you have which you help engage minors on the app which you're talking about?
Sure. So when we talk about other things, one of the basic things is that teenagers these days are have. I mean, when I say teenagers again, I'm just referring to minors. Okay. Whenever I say teenagers, just think of it as minors. They're very active on social media platforms, Snapchat, Instagram, and the kind of products they have been using have been like built by US or UK, are very different from the products which have been built in India. And we just try to match the level of the UI UX which is there, the feel, look and feel of the product, so that they can basically relate the whole product to the kind of products they basically like to use. So very basic features like there's a social angle to the thing where you can share whatever you're paying with your friends. There's a community angle to the whole thing where basically people are able to like participate in events of our community, plus participate in like the gamified competitions and challenges which we are hosting on the app. So overall we just try to make sure that it's not just about payments, but overall how can we make this holistically available for everyone who's a teenager, solving their problems at the core, not just payments, right? So payments we just take as one of the use cases of FamPay right now. And given the COVID, we are also experimenting how do we like there are a lot of industries which are linked to payments eventually. So how do we bring all of the products and services which are teenager values,
Mhm.
whether it be a Blinkist subscription or whether it be anything which is related to Snapchat and directly integrating the Bitmojis inside the app, right? So everything is eventually a part of the whole experience when it comes to FAMP. It's not just that you come to it and you don't feel that you're using a banking app at all, basically.
Right, right. I think that is a very interesting point because when you talk about uh, handling money, or when you talk about minors handling money, usually adults get a bit jittery. But if you look at an app which doesn't necessarily look at it as a payments or a banking app, but instead augments itself as something else, and then you have a feature which comes out as payments. I think that's actually a very interesting way to go about getting adoption. I think another interesting view which I'd like to hear about is, so we've all heard about how the edtech space works, right? So in the edtech space, although your consumers are primarily your students, your customers are mainly the parents because they are the ones who have the propensity to pay. They are
That's
the ones who give permission or access to their minors, right? How is it that you tackle this issue where you were supposed to market to the parents, but then drive adoption on the consumer side for minors?
Understood. I think this is what actually the company we're trying to build upon. The whole hypothesis that so see if it let me just talk a little about the target group, because in India it might be a little tricky to understand how parents are and how teenagers are. So teenagers are the one person in the house who are driving all the technology adoption, as I said. They are technology, they're tech savvy. They understand how everything works when it comes to mobile apps, or for that matter, which TV do you want to buy, to which fridge do you want to buy, or which any kind of electronic device, mobile phone which you want to buy. So all of these small decisions have not, like people have started valuing their children, their kids' opinions when it comes to decision making for these things, right? Because they just believe
Right.
that the children are more savvy in these things. When you talk about parents, specifically the parents of teenagers, they're primarily of the age of 40 plus because I mean, like if you think of a kid of 13 to 17 years old, generally the parent would be in India of the age of 40 or above. There and the third thing when you look at is the whole digital payments adoption. It's primarily done by 18 to 40 years old or 35 years old, not
Okay.
like above 40.
Right.
So that is the biggest challenge for us, that is the parents don't trust digital payments that easily, even if it's everywhere. And children trust, but they cannot convince their parents to do something which is related to payments or related to finance on a mobile app. I mean, they're able to convince their parents to buy something on Amazon and Flipkart after 7 to 8 years of their operations, and now still they have doubts of whether to get something online or not. But when we talk about these parents, it's tricky. So that is why we just definitely believe that as a company we need to make parents aware of why and how this ecosystem would be working. It's easy for us now because of the COVID. Everyone understands why not cash. Uh, there was a demonetization time in India a couple of years ago. They shifted to cash for a few days and then, oh sorry, they shifted to digital payments for a few days and then came back to cash because it was very easy. Right now it's a life and death situation, so it's a different thing altogether, and especially for adults when they understand that it's even severe if they get like anything as serious as the virus. So now the adoption has increased. Definitely it's comparatively easy for us to educate them, but again, uh, at a mass level, if we talk about the whole India, there are 250 million teenagers, and most of them are, it's like most of them are tech savvy. I mean, even if they don't have their own smartphones, they know how to do it. They have like access to something because of also the geo revolution. People have internet, people have really cheap smartphones. So eventually, children, if we talk about as a brand, we are just trying to make sure that they understand the value of the product much easily, right? They haven't used payments app before, so how do we make sure that they understand how payments app properly work? Then building something which is not just anything but also aspirational value for these kids, because eventually at the end of the day, when any product like an Instagram is famous and or Snapchat is famous, it's because everyone is there, right? Each one of my friend is there and I eventually want to be a part of them. I want to socialize. So it's like driving adoption through children is much more easy, and it's a lot of brand value which you have to build, and the community value which you have to build, rather than just like a very transactional relation. It's a very tricky space to be in because building a brand for Gen Z, it's like very tough. I mean, there's no brand in India which specifically targets Gen Z or minors. I mean, there are clothing brands which target youth as the thing. People are targeting youth. No one targets under 18 kids as okay. We have, apart from edtech companies, but they're again not like they sound serious, right? I mean, they also try to sell to parents at the end of the day.
Correct. Correct. Also, since you are running it from a for-profit angle, right? How is it that you go about building a sustainable business in this space? Given that there are two things you have to do. One is to drive change itself, because you're not looking at a market which actually thought of something as a need. You're trying to create that need and create that market for yourself, which is something which nonprofits usually help with, right? So how is it that you're going about tackling both the problems where you're A, selling and staying sustainable, and B, also creating that change and the need in your market?
Yes. So I think to answer this question, I'll just take an example of Paytm because or PhonePe or any other big payments app in India. So for example, if we talk about them creating an impact in terms of people understanding finance, it's huge because since millions of people are there doing payments, it's really easy for them to eventually drive them towards the whole financial literacy angle. They can easily create features which certainly make people understand how money works. Now, for example, Paytm Money is there. People have started investing on stocks and mutual funds, and now the Paytm helps you open a demat account and everything. So it's like when you basically you have to find a starting point where people get hooked to your product, and eventually that is something which you cannot do without I mean there are definitely two notions to it, that is you teach people theoretically. We just are of the other notion that it's difficult for people to like take on that learning for a longer period of time. If you teach people, it will stay for, let's say, an year. But if they don't practice it, if they don't have a platform where they actually look at how it works, it might not sustain. So what we as a company are trying to do is building products which are, for example, if you talk about Gen Z, which are gamified, which can hook their interest very easily. And once we have like so many teenagers on the platform, and once we have like millions of them, it's very easy to start educating them about finance through gamified features. Help them save, help them create saving goals for their stuff. They can, let's say, if they want to buy a Xbox, just don't ask them to save, just help them create a saving goal on the app, and they'll save for the Xbox, right? And they'll be able to see how much money they have saved. And credit and investments are something which are very very tricky for teenagers in India. So I'm not sure how are we going to solve that problem and educate for them. But yeah, I mean that's definitely going to be one of our visions, that eventually children should be able to maybe invest smaller amounts in stocks, if possible, in mutual funds if possible, and like I mean be a part of the whole system. I mean micro lending, maybe giving them some credits and trying it out. So those are the things which we would be doing that makes us as a profitable business, which are like they have transaction, and then basically just as the banking ecosystem, as they earn money, we'll be able to build something on the top of it, and not just the edtech part of it.
That's nice. That's nice. Also, before we jump into other experiences that you had, um, I also want to understand the importance of how you built your team around this whole thing, right? Given the kind of expertise that you come with, what were the other aspects or other kinds of you know experiences or experts who you needed on board who could help you not only in terms of direction, but also in terms of executing the work, right? And
Yep.
if there were any issues that you faced in that. So I understand that you're a 21-year-old founder, but or 22-year-old founder, but what is it? How is it that you're able to hire or manage developers who are maybe in their in their late 20s or in their 30s? And how is it that you manage this team? And that's something that I think is very interesting to understand from any young startup founder.
Yes. So I think we started in college, as I said. So the first 2 to 3 people like joined I mean, just after the college. So overall, like the core team of FAMPE, the founding team of FAMPE are total 6 people, and all of us are from IIT Roorkee 2019 batch. So eventually, we are all friends from college. We have worked on multiple projects during college, and we eventually ended up starting up together. So the journey was a little different when it comes to making the team initially for us. But when you talk about the next set of people, and because now we are 22 years old and we cannot like have all the people in the team who are freshers, we need to have people who are experienced, who have like 4 or 5 years of experience, who can build a team, build an organization. Because as a young entrepreneur, we can definitely bring that vision, bring that energy to the team, but we don't know how to build organizations because we have never built one, right? It's the first time for us as well. So for building an organization now, we definitely look for people who have experience, who can also be like leaders for the other set of people which will other freshers which we hire in the future. So I think overall, it happened for us. I mean, also during the Y Combinator program. So the biggest thing which happened to FAMPE initially was we got selected in the Y Combinator program in summer 19 batch. That got us a lot of credibility, and because of that, we were able to like explain what we are trying to do to people very easily. I would say we got lucky in that manner, because not everyone gets to get into Y Combinator just after college. And because of that, it was a little different altogether. I mean, whenever we talk to people, we just, if for example we mention Y Combinator, it was easy for us to like convince them, or let's say talk to them if they want to join us and stuff. So right now we have 15 members in the team, and out of 15, as I said, six are the founding team members, and the rest of the team is divided into the product and the community. So the product team is basically consists of the engineers, the designers, and the community part is like the whole. We don't have like a specific business team here. It's like how do we build a bigger community. It's like more of a one plus approach in the initial days, where we are trying to uh, like do non-scalable efforts to make them a part of the thing. So more people in terms of community plus content, social media, or graphic designers because like we have to be very creative as a brand all the time. So we spend a lot of time on building the brand on social media specifically. Right now we're very active on Instagram. I mean, if anyone wants to look at how we basically like put in efforts, Instagram is the best place to go and look at it.
Right. Okay, so let me just quickly jump into the questions that we have from the audience, right?
Yeah,
And
man.
I think we have two interesting questions there. Let me first take one regarding your startup, and the second one is regarding the landscape of personal finance for teenagers.
Okay.
So the first one is, so Swapnil Bhagat wants to understand how is it that you went about raising funding, understanding that FamPay has currently raised funding from institutional and angel investors. What are the best practices? If you could tell us in, say, a couple of minutes, it would be great.
Okay. I think the bottom line when it comes to fundraising, so it's definitely there are two parts to it. Okay, one is if how investors look at it, and that is called as an investment thesis, which every investor has.
Correct.
So they basically look at three things primarily. I mean, every investor would have their own thesis of how do they evaluate a startup or an industry. So primarily three things. One is the founders. I mean, who is the founding team? What is the founding team? What is their experience, or what is not just experience? Like if they're able to pull things off when it comes to hustling around. Second is definitely the idea. So ideas. So we are of the thought process that people always say that execution is more important than idea. I definitely agree to that, but we also think that the idea should definitely cross a minimum threshold. You should be aware of what kind of idea do you have. It should not be just be a another thing of XYZ. Even if you're trying to do another thing of XYZ, just be smart around thinking of how do you basically do it in a different way, right? If a person is doing it in X way and you're just copying that X way and not innovating, you won't be able to cross X, right? You won't be able to like the market leader if you do the same things. So if you want to cross, so that is the thing we generally believe idea is important, really important. And the third part is definitely the market size.
Mhm.
So market size is at an early stage startup, because I think most of the audience would be either who have not started or maybe early stage founders. So is more about, if it's a B2C specifically, it's more about how many people you can actually reach out to. So it's like how many people you can actually reach out to, and how do you basically have a thought process of creating revenue out of them. So these are the three things when you look at from the investor's end, and but you look at from the company's end, it's always a story which you tell people, and it's at an early stage startup because you don't have revenues, you don't have users to show them, but you
Right.
just have done some market research. You have some beta users maybe on your pilot, on a prototype, or maybe some validations through talking to people. So you can just sell a story around what you think would work, and that story has to be compelling. I mean, for us, it was the fact that no, there's no one focusing on teenagers and their payments, and there are so many of them, almost one fifth of Indian population. So even if like you look at the first 20 million who are the, I mean, going to be the first people who we onboard, still it becomes huge. 20 million is like a very big number when it comes to like people using your platform. So it was more you just look at these and try to present it in a way that investors understand. Most of
Correct.
founders,
Correct.
what they do, what the problem is that they definitely know what they're trying to do, but I have seen a lot of people not able to present it to people in a similar fashion, or not able to present it in a manner that the investors would be excited about. So they also need to understand the investor psychology of how it's like you cracking an interview for your job, right? You prepare everything, and you basically like also it is not supposed to be like in the air, because even if you do a job interview and it's you basically like cook up stuff, eventually things won't fall into place and you might leave, a company might fire you. So it's very
Understood.
similar thing that you prepare for things, and you have to put in extra efforts as an early stage founder to understand how to talk to investors, because
Got it.
that's really important.
So
So
what I've from my other conversations with other founders, right? I've spoken to quite a few founders before, and one of the most interesting one is from the co-founder of Level Networks, and he told me that finding an investor sometimes is very hard, but it's almost like finding an alliance for marriage. You just need one, right? And once you have that one, everyone's like, okay, wow, he
yeah,
has
so
made it.
it's definitely that. It's
Yeah.
definitely that.
Okay. Yeah. One more question which I have for you before we just wind up, and this is from uh, it's basically around the landscape. Is about how do you think it's possible for Indian teenagers to take gigs seriously, um, similar to the West, right? Or what do you think, or what do you think can drive Indian teenagers to take that seriously as a side thing to do? As compared to what we usually do mainstream, right?
Yeah, I can
And
get
a
that.
and a counterpoint to that also is when it comes to community engagement on your platform. How is it that you ensure the right kind of community engagement because of it being for minors? And that's a very
Yeah,
important thing that you have to
yeah,
tackle in terms of content.
true, true. So I think yeah, it's a very valid point that people in India don't understand what a gig is at all. When it comes to even a college kid, it's difficult for. I mean, people start doing internships in college, but still, to certain extent, they're dependent on the parents for most of them. I mean, not generalizing it, but most of, including me, most of us are like dependent on the parents till we graduate from college, and if we, let's say, go for higher studies, then it extends basically. So when it comes to Indian teenagers to take gigs seriously, people would take some time, and there's a lot of awareness which needs to happen, because they don't right now know why to go for that gig. Right now it's more of a passion for so uh, until now, the experience I have had with teenagers, I think there's a shift in terms of people understanding how freelancing works and how these gigs work. People have, for example, in school started their own photography, um, like small freelancing work like photography, designing, or let's say they have started also. I mean, I think how I got in touch with Finmango was through Shamil. So he's one of the very good example of how people have started also building apps and products.
He's
um,
actually coming up next, so yeah,
yeah, he just told me.
yeah.
So just like talking to a lot of children, I think this is they don't take it seriously, and how we are trying to do it is basically taking a smaller set of people who have done it in India, who are doing these gigs as examples to the other set of people, and making sure that they basically slowly have a transformation. So for example, all of these community members which are there right now have done something really interesting, right? So some of them are prime minister awardees, some of them are TEDx speakers, some of them have started their own companies, and whatnot. I mean, they're different from really different backgrounds, and we just try to make sure that they become the role models for the other set of teenagers and their juniors, and they follow these people as the audience. So that is how I think we are trying to solve the thing. Coming to the community part, it's honestly not very difficult, because eventually every there's so we how we are basically moving forward with community building is we have divided the community also in different parts. So we just understand there are different kind of teenagers which are there. Some people who have hobbies as their interest, right? Who are into sports, music, arts, dance. So these are one, there's like, for example, one set of people. And then there are people who want to be Instagram influencers these days. They want to be models, Instagram influencers, and they're basically the ones who set trend in their groups. Okay, they bring in new things. They bring in all sorts of new memes. Okay, on the WhatsApp groups, and they basically setting up the trend. Another set of people who are more serious related to the career, and they focus on, let's say, things like, all they've started coding in their like teenage. They've started learning new skills in the teenage. So targeting these three set of groups separately is basically how we are trying to do it. I mean, we cannot ask a kid who's interested to learn to code and to like understand how to become an Instagram influencer, right? So eventually
Right.
you will pick up on interests of these of teenagers, and then build micro communities is what is the whole community building part about. I mean, it's easy because you have like seen communities in these subdomains, but it's tricky because as a company, if you try to do so many things in so many communities, it becomes difficult for you to position yourself I mean at a specific place. So I
Got it.
mean that is what we have to find a sweet spot.
Sure, sure. I think we're out of time here, and but it was great talking to you, and I think there is still a lot more that we can discuss maybe offline. If
Absolutely.
there are any more questions, I'd be happy to hear it from the panelists, and then afterwards we can. I'll probably post them to you later, and then we can see how we can spread it across to the community over
Yep.
email or something like that. We'll
Absolutely.
figure out the logistics of that and quickly move on to the next segment. Right. So thanks everyone for listening. That was Ayush, CEO of FamPay. And yeah,
Also,
thank you very
Ayush,
much. Yeah.
sorry, just if you could quickly share the link of FamPay on the chat box, it'd be super useful. We'll obviously share on Instagram, but
So this is
awesome.
the app. If you want to download the app, it's
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ayush.